What's up, everybody, and welcome to the first edition of a brand new series here on the Get Back YouTube channel. This is the Hockey Recap Weekly Show. I'm Daniel. This is a very hockey-specific section of the channel. We're talking all about hockey for the next, 30 to 40 minutes or so. Some of the top stories, some of the top games, some of the top teams. That's what we're going to be doing here. Let's get into it. So let's start off with the Winter Classic that happened yesterday between the New York Rangers and the Florida Panthers in Lone Depot Park in Miami, Florida. Listen, this game was kind of interesting for both teams. Both teams in the standings kind of sit relatively close to each other, and the standings in and of itself is already pretty close. At the time, the Rangers were at 43 points and the Panthers were at 45. So now the Rangers are tied up in points at 45. And they're relatively close to a playoff spot. They're right there in that second wild card. And the East in and of itself is just an absolute, mess in how close everyone in the standing is. It's beautiful. We'll get to that a little bit later. For the game itself, Rangers absolutely took control early on. Had an early 3-0 lead here. Miguel Zibanejad had two really good goals. Panarin was able to get on the score sheet twice. And then Miguel Zibanejad gets the empty netter to cap off his hat trick. He gets the first Winter Classic hat trick from Miguel Zibanejad. Igor Shesterkin was solid for the Rangers. Panarin got another star as well. Lafreniere had 3 assists. Sam Reinhart got one on the power play for the Panthers as well. I think the Rangers clearly showed their experience. They showed their aptitude for these games. Bobrovsky kind of seemed a little bit off throughout the whole night. Igor was sharp. I think that's kind of been the formula for the Rangers. They've definitely seemed to have... They do well when they're able to score. I know that's kind of like a blanketed statement, but it's true. The Rangers struggle to score, and they struggle to kind of get things going 5-on-5. There wasn't that much of a struggle here today. And when Igor's on his game, all it takes is maybe 1 or 2 goals for the Rangers to win. So when you put 5 in, it's kind of a boon. The Rangers are able to stay perfect outdoors. I think they're down 6-0 in outdoor games, which is just a far superior record that no one seems to really be touching anytime soon. In terms of the presentation of the Winter Classic, I mean, my opinion is my opinion. It was 63 degrees. It was in Florida. It was a lot of Ranger fans there. I feel like the Winter Classic has always, to me, been very special. I think it's one of the greatest ideas that the NHL has ever done. I think it's one of the best events that in any sport. I have been privileged to go to 2 outdoor games here in the metro area in New York, the 2018 Winter Classic and then the one in 2023. So I'm very fortunate for that. It's such a great event. If you have a chance to go to one, go to one. It's so much fun and it's such a great experience. That being said, I do feel like this Winter Classic seemed a bit off. I think TNT tried to do their best with their broadcast, but even that seemed off. TNT does a great presentation from the halftime show to, all the things going on outside of the ice. It just seems like it wasn't the main focus. And that, to me, has been the problem. This is it's not your Super Bowl, but it's your one day where you could be unique and show off to the world the greatness of hockey and the absolute joy that we get from this sport. And I feel like that kind of wasn't the focus here. And even like Winter Classics of the past, where we were outside and it was cold and it felt like, this is what hockey should be. That to me isn't a big deal. You filled out a stadium. You were in Florida. It's not a hotbed. You could use this chance to grow the game and show off the game to a lot of people in Florida when you have the top team there for the past 3 years. And even there didn't really seem all that much. So I think the Winter Classic could be, use a little bit of a revamp, probably go back to where it used to be, back to where we focused on the game and we focused on the build up to the game. We focused on, highlighting, the sport itself and its grassroots nature and how it is a backyard sport. And while it is expensive and while it is a lot for kids to get into and it is a big ask for kids to get into, it is a great sport and it builds a great camaraderie and it teaches a lot of valuable lessons. Getting back to that kind of roots and core is where I think we should take the Winter Classic for the next couple of years. But all things considered, the game was the game. The Rangers had a clear advantage from the start. The ice seemed good. All things considered, the ice seemed good. Nobody came in with a really big injury, apart from Seth Jones, who got injured in the first period and never returned, so hopefully he's still okay. And, I think when you look at these two teams, you see two different stories, right? I think for the Rangers, this first half of the year has been up and down. I think they've had good games, they've had bad games. I personally am a Ranger fan, so I have a little bit of a bias. I won't show it here, but, it's been up and down. They've had good games, bad games. Defensively, they've been solid. They've been hurt as well. It's offensively they've struggled. They don't really have that marquee guy except for Panarin on offense. Mika's been inconsistent, to say the least. Lafreniere's been inconsistent, to say the least. Trocheck's been missing most of the year. Adam Fox has been missing for most of the year so far. Never really replaced Chris Kreider. They're kind of going with a much younger lineup. Mike Sullivan's the first-year coach. So there's a lot of moving pieces. Offensively, really haven't gotten it together. Igor's been great. Defensively, they've been great. Offensively, they've struggled. And they didn't struggle here, so maybe that could be a good turning point. Could be a good sign that things are starting to move in the right direction for them. But they have to kind of prove it. They have 4 wins at home this entire year. They're not a good home team, and that's something that should not be the case. We'll see if they change throughout the course of the year, if they're able to kind of use this as a launching pad for themselves to kind of get going here. They're not out of the playoff race. No team in the East is out of a playoff race when you look at these standings. And for Florida, their season's been riddled with injuries. They've leaned on Brad Marchand to kind of be their guy, and he's been that guy. Aaron Ekblad's been that guy. Bob's been really good. But, it's been, they played a lot of hockey the past 2 or 3 years. Paul Maurice is a good coach. He's a great coach. Even I love Paul Maurice as a coach. It only makes them more of a threat if they're able to get into a wild card spot and get all their guys back, like Barkov, like all their guys able to come back healthy and strong, and they're able to go into a big playoff push. If it's for them to get into the playoffs, that's all it takes. That's all it takes. They're sitting at 45 points. They're tied for the last wild card spot. There's still half a season to go, so we'll see. I'm not gonna rule Florida out. Do I think they'll get that final wild card spot? That's tough. It's tough to say. Right now, it's interesting, right? It's interesting for them because they're tied with 3 teams, with Pittsburgh, New York, and themselves, and then New Jersey's breathing down their throat. Toronto's breathing down their throat. Bruins are there. Ottawa's there. Columbus is also kind of there with 5 points. That's the entire Eastern Conference, So everyone in the East kind of has a decent opportunity here to make the playoffs. Shout out to Florida. Shout out to the Rangers. Shout out to the Winter Classic. It's a lot of fun, great event, and hopefully it can continue. Moving on, what happened on January 1st and what's going to happen in the future, if we look a little bit ahead, is we have the Milan Winter Olympics coming up in February, and we have the Olympic rosters revealed. We're going to be focusing mainly on Canada and the U.S. because Sweden's always Sweden. They're going to be tough. Finland's going to have a great team this year as well. But I think the two marquee teams in this event are Canada and USA. Has kind of always been the standard. There's no Russia for political reasons, so we're not going to get into that, but there's no Russia this year, so it's also eliminating a big threat as well. Mainly the US and Canada, and we'll start the Canadian roster. It's essentially the 4 nations roster that happened last year in the NHL. No real surprise here. You have Crosby, Celebrini, Cirelli, Hagel, Horvath, McKinnon, Marchand, Marner, McDavid, Point, Reinhardt, Stone, Suzuki, Tom Wilson. And defensively, they have Doughty, Harley, Cale Makar, John Morrissey, Colin Parayko, Travis Sanheim, Shea Theodore, Devon Hayes, and then goalies are Binghamton, Kemper, and Logan Thomas. It's a great roster. It's objectively a great roster. When up the middle you have Crosby, McKinnon, and McDavid as your 3 main centers is disgusting. You throw in Sam Reinhart and Mark Stone on the wing. You have Macklin Celebrini, who's going to probably win the Rookie of the Year. It could be a potential Hart candidate with the way he's been playing. And then you have guys on defense like Drew Doughty, Cale Makar, who's just an enigma, Shea Theodore, and then Binghamton between the pipes. I mean, you have a very solid roster here. Look, they won the 4 Nations last year with this kind of similar roster. There was a shout for Jacob Chikrin there was a shout for, maybe a couple other guys, obviously. Brandon Hagel is a kind of an interesting move. Not gonna lie there. Travis Konecny was kind of a snub as well. Maybe Seth Jarvis could have been a name. I also no Sam Bennett either. No Matthew Schaefer. Also kind of surprising. No Connor Bedard, which I thought was interesting as well. I think clearly they wanted to go for a team that knew each other, that had good chemistry. They went for a team that's able to play together, they know can work together. They've done that. They're going for a team with a lot of grit and, having that Canadian kind of pride and soul. So, they went with something that, kind of is gritty. It kind of is a little bit, on the edgier side, apart from the skilled side, which I think isn't a bad move. You need guys who can get down and get dirty. You can't have an entire skilled roster. You need guys who are able to kind of put a hit in, go chase the puck, have some speed, go win a board battle, stuff like that. Especially with the American team, which we'll get to in a minute, is full of players like that who are full of grit and strength. You need somebody to combat that. Because the Americans kind of threw themselves last year at the Canadians in that first game. Then the second game kind of were able to fight back. But, this is a very solid roster. It's going to be so much fun watching them together on the ice as an American. This team is nasty. This Canadian team is nasty, right? Listen, I'm all for America, go Freebird, but this Canadian team is solid. It's sexy, it's gritty. Binghamton between the pipes is interesting. I think Binghamton is a great goalie, but he is a little leaky sometimes. But he's also crazy, so he makes up for it. I like this roster for the Canadians. I know there's some pushback against certain players, and no Jacob Chikrin obviously was a big surprise. Travis Sanheim being there is interesting over him. But I think it's hard to complain when you have guys like McKinnon and Crosby and McCarr and Doughty, Theodore and people like that. So I think Canadians have a good roster. I think they'll be fine. I think they're destined for a gold medal game against USA. So we'll see if that's going to be the case. Moving on to the American roster, and moving on to how the Americans kind of are going to set this up for themselves. They released their roster January 1st, and it's a very, very also similar to their roster that they put out for the Four Nations. Matthew Boldy, Kyle Connor, Jack Eichel, Jake Ensel, Jack Hughes, Clayton Keller, Dylan Larkin, Austin Matthews, JT Miller, Brock Nelson, Tage Thompson, Brayden Chuck, Matthew Chuck, and Vincent Trocheck. On defense, you have Brock Favors, on Hannafin, Quinn Hughes, Seth Jones, Charlie McAvoy, Jake Sanderson, Jacob Slavin, Zach Werenski. And your goalies are Hellebuck, Ottinger, and Jeremy Swayman. So, very similar to what they had last year. I think, the two main non-additions, or the replacements, are Adam Fox and Chris Kreider. I think the pushback also that there's no Jason Robertson, that there's no Lane Hudson, is an interesting debate to have. Cole Caulfield, Alex DeBrincat as well. And I think it's interesting how they put this team together, right? Because I think they clearly went for size, and they went for grittiness, and they went for kind of big body players. DeBrincat and Jason Robertson are fantastic talents. Lane Hudson is a great defenseman. Lane Hudson leads all like Americans in points this year. Robinson has 24 and 24. He's a fantastic player. Adam Fox is like the third all-time among American defensemen right now, and is going to demolish. Is going to basically kind of be one of the best American defensemen of all time, right? Points wise. So clearly, there's the guys who have something in common, that they're all smaller players, right? The Brinkett and Robinson are like 5'8", 5'9", right? So they're much more on the skinnier side and much more on the lighter side. And its roster is full of players who are really tall, who are really strong, and who are really fast, right? They all have that in common. So, look, it's hard to kind of nitpick when you have guys like Jack Hughes, JT Miller, Clayton Keller, who's a new addition this year, who's having a spectacular year, who has a lot of grit, a lot of strength. You have Jack Eichel, you have Austin Matthews, Tage Thompson. You put Tage Thompson with the Chucks, my God. What a first line that could be. you know. Then you have Vince Trocheck who can go in there and kill a power play. Dylan Larkin who can have some speed and kill a power play. Seth Jones who's a big body, get in front of shots. Quinn Hughes who's got skill defensively. Werenski who's got skill defensively as a defenseman. You know, McAvoy can go down and block a shot. You know, so you have a lot of interesting talent here. You have a lot of very, very tough and gritty players, right? And obviously the goal was to win a gold medal, you know, so that's part of it as well. So I think, again, they went for a team that kind of knows each other, that kind of knows how they play with each other, that kind of knows how to kind of play against other opponents. So, you know, they've had that experience, and I think that is also a big part of it as well. And obviously, you know, injuries will also happen. It's unfortunate. You know, we talked about a little bit Seth Jones getting hurt in the first period. Hopefully he's okay, but we'll see if he'll be able to make it for the Olympics. So that could be a possible replacement. They are 3 weeks away. So we'll see what kind of happens there. But yeah, I mean, this is a great roster, right? This is a great roster. I probably would have had Jason Robinson in there personally. I think the kid is talented. I think he's a difference maker. I think he's got one of the best shots in the NHL. The fact that he's not there is kind of a problem for me, but you know, maybe you know, somebody like a Vince Trocheck didn't really deserve to be there. Maybe a Brock Nelson deserved to be there, you know. But I think, again, it's hard to argue when you have players like these, and there's a clear emphasis on bringing in players with grit and who have that size and that ability to kind of, you know, they're not finesse players. Nobody's a finesse player in the NHL, but these are guys who are known to put in a check. They're known to, you know, really get at other players. So, Hellebuck between the sticks, I mean, it's going to be great. I think he's the clear number one. Onger, Onger's up and down for me. I really don't think you should get the nod over Hellebuck. And Swayman's a good backup to have for anything. So, but to me, I think Hellebuck is the clear number one for this team. And we'll see. I think it's USA-Canada for a destined final. I think that's going to be the clear kind of trajectory for these Olympics. It's going to be fun watching this team just bully other teams around and push them around on their way to a gold medal game. I think if we get the Canada-USA gold medal game, that's going to be a lot of fun to watch. And that's going to be obviously like the big draw and the big kind of game. USA going to try to avenge the loss in the Four Nation. Canada try and defend their kind of heritage and their, you know, Canadian sport. So they're clearly going to be gunning for it as well. So it's going to be a lot of fun. The Olympics going to be so much fun. I love these rosters. I love the Olympics. I think it's good that they're back. I think it's good that, you know, hopefully we have a rink to play in. Milan. Hopefully we have a rink to play in, because you had almost a decade to build a rink and it still wasn't ready. I mean, it's the most crazy story you're ever going to read and figure out, is that Milan had everything ready for these Olympics, and they had plenty of time to get ready for these Olympics, but yet we seem to have forgotten about hockey and forgotten how to build an Olympic rink. And I know, like in Italy, it's not the main sport, and it's not even close to that. But still, how do we not have a rink ready for one of the premier events for the Olympics? I mean, it's crazy. So hopefully the rink is safe and built, and the ice is maintained well, and that they're able to kind of play on it without a risk of injury. So hopefully that is going to be the case. Moving on, something going on that's current, something's going on right now. The World Juniors. So what is the World Juniors? I always get this question. I get this question asked often on the show and around. So the World Juniors is a yearly tournament where players under the age of, or it's 19 or under. It might be 18 or under actually. They play in a tournament with other teams that are under 18. It's called the World Juniors, right? So USA, Canada, you know, Germany's in there, Latvia, Sweden, Finland, Czechia, Slovakia, a lot of other teams, Switzerland. Like it's a global tournament, right? And every year it's played, and it's used to like kind of showcase these young players. Some of them have already been drafted, some of them are going to be drafted, some of them are in college already, right? So it's used to kind of like get them going and get them, you know, some exposure. Also to kind of show like the youth of hockey and kind of show off, where the sport is and the future stars. A lot of players have played in the World Juniors are now in the NHL or elsewhere. So that is the current tournament going on right now. We just wrapped up the quarterfinals and we had a pretty big surprise. Sweden beat Latvia, that wasn't a surprise. Canada beat Czechia, that wasn't a surprise. And then we get to these two. Finland has beaten the United States World Junior team 4-3 in overtime. And what was kind of the stunner of the tournament so far? It's not a great look for USA. It was a tough game. Finland had a really, really solid defense in how they were set up and how they were able to play. Really wasn't that much of a game for them. Yeah, I mean, it's a stunner. It's an absolute stunner to Team USA, who were in the finals last year and won the tournament last year, and is on their home ice. They're in Minnesota. Yeah, it's not a great look for Finland. For USA. So it's a tough loss. It's a tough tournament. You can't win them all, but this was a team expected to kind of go far and go into the finals, especially win this whole tournament again. A shout out to Finland. They played well. They played solid. They'll face Sweden, their destined rival, in the semifinals. That should be fun. Canada's going to play Czechia. It's a tough game. Czechia's a really solid team, but Canada should kind of be expected to dominate that. But yeah, Sweden and Finland's going to be a fun matchup. That's always a fun team. Sweden's got a really solid roster. They're fast. They're quick. They got great shots. Canada's got some really talented players as well. But the World Juniors are always every year. They're fun. They're exciting. They're kind of show off the sport a little bit. Super fun. But good credit to Finland. They beat USA and they beat a really, really favorited team. So there's always a result like that in the World Juniors. Happened to Canada last year when they lost to Latvia. These things happen. USA has to move on, kind of regroup. They'll be back next year, as they will every year. So shout out to Finland for winning. Go beat Canada, I guess. That's the World Juniors. We'll keep an eye on that probably for next week as well, as we keep going with this. And before we go, just going to highlight a couple of teams here so far this year, these last 5 minutes here. Shout out to Colorado. Colorado they're 32-7, meaning they have 67 points. That's 10 more than the next team in the NHL. Filthy, gross, nasty. They're undefeated at home from 2 overtime losses. They have 2 road losses. I mean, their goal difference is plus 71. I mean, this is insane when you really look at it. And you really look at how McKinnon's an absolute monster. He's averaging almost 2 points a game, which is disgusting, to say the least. They still have, to play 3 more games than everybody else. They're on 39 games. They're a buzzsaw. They're probably going to win the Presidents. I don't see a team in the West that's really better than them. Edmonton has problems. Vegas has problems. Dallas is good. Minnesota I like. But Colorado's just as a unit right now. So they're on a 9-game heater. They have 1 overtime loss over their last 10. It's disgusting what you're looking at there. So Colorado to me just is right now the best team in the AHL. They have the best roster. They have the best 1-2 punch with Makar and McKinnon and then Taves as well. Defensively, they have grit. They have Landeskog still. So it's a solid team. It's a great team. So I think they'll be cruising the rest of the way. Shout out to Buffalo, to the Sabres, who we all kind of written off as a dead franchise. Winning 10 in a row, they're in a playoff spot right now. They currently hold the first wild card spot, or second wild card spot, excuse me. They have Tage Thompson. They're on a heater. They're on a bender. Hopefully they can keep it going. I think it'd be cool to see Buffalo in the playoffs to kind of kill that drought, to kind of finally get over that hump. But at the end of the day, it's Buffalo, and it's the Eastern Conference, and if there's a team that you're going to pick, it's probably going to be the team not Buffalo to make it out of that Eastern Conference here. So, sorry, Buffalo. But, give credit to them. They're fighting. I think that's a cool thing to see. They're fighting. They have a really solid. They've been working. Eventually the draft picks got to hit. Eventually, Rasmus Dahlin has been very good. They traded Jack Eichel, so their first round picks haven't really been up to snuff so far, but they seem to have a really good roster right now, and they seem to be flowing pretty well. And yeah, I think this is just such a fun standings watch. When you think of Detroit being first place in the Atlantic as well. Hopefully they'll get back to the playoffs. Toronto's kind of been the big surprise in the East with 44 points, and that's really, it's kind of hard to say it's a struggling year because they're also right there. They're tied for the last wild card spot. They're 6 points out of the third place in their division. Like it's they're right there. Like, this is how the East is. Like, there's a lot of teams you could say it hasn't been that much of a struggling year because they're in a playoff race. When we get to the deadline, it's going to be very interesting to see where teams are at. San Jose as well, shout out to them. And, Celebrini, who's been one of the best players in the league so far. A possible Hart finalist. Giving San Jose a chance in the Pacific to kind of sneak into that playoff spot as well. I think, Winnipeg as well is also kind of in a huge disappointment. But to me, they haven't really done that roster justice for a long time. They've kind of kept it the same for too long. We'll see if maybe some of those guys get moved, like Scheifele, like O'Connor. We'll see. I wouldn't be surprised. I think it wouldn't be a bad thing, and I would think it wouldn't be that surprised to see that franchise kind of reset itself because they tried to win with that core. Didn't work. They had the great team. They didn't win. And if you're able to kind of get value for guys like Scheifele, for guys like Connor, for guys like Hellebuck, I think you have to pull the trigger there and do it now. But yeah, that's going to do it for this first edition of the Hockey Weekly Recap Show, whatever we're going to decide to call it. This has been the first episode. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you guys liked it. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment what you want me to talk about, what you want to hear about, what you want to kind of get out of this. It's gonna go through some changes. This is basically the trial run, and we talk about a lot of cool stuff, a lot of fun stuff, a lot of great hockey stuff. We'll do news. We'll do team-specific stuff. We'll look at certain games over time. I think just having a general broad census right now is a good move. Anything specific you want to talk about, put in the comment section. Anything you want to know about, put in the comment section. Anything you want to learn about, put in the comment section. Share it, like it, subscribe it. Thank you guys for listening. I've been Daniel. Make sure to check out other content or other stuff. Check out the live streams, all that good stuff. And we'll see you guys next time. Peace.